The date is March the 4th, and I'm going to title this post 1938 Muncy Raft Crash. I'm not going to post it until next Friday, which is March the 13th, and I'll explain why. I'm not an expert on all this, number one, but I've had something here in my home for 27 years. It's a piece of that raft. It says, and it's fading out, the last raft through Clearfield, March 15th, 1938. That's what it says on it. And I, of course, wasn't born until 1948, so I knew very little, practically nothing about this, but I started to research a little bit this morning and decided to make this post. Before I talk about the 1938 crash, the only two that I recall, adventures regarding rafting on the Susquehanna, were back in 1976. What you're looking at here is, you all know that our 250th anniversary is coming up July 4th, 2026. This is the brochure from Clearfield area on how we celebrated in 1976. At that time, there was no rafting done in Clearfield, but there was one done down toward Lock Haven. And on my Clearfield PA channel, one of the playlists I have says something to the effect of March 2004 was a cold day, I was there. There's 3 posts there, and one of them is just about a minute long about that raft adventure. It's the only thing that I could find if you want to look at that. In addition to that, there's also a post for our Clearfield County bicentennial in 2004. I remember that very well. And this is the brochure on the bicentennial raft adventure, which, by the way, they also launched up in Curwensville on March 13th, and I was there, and they had a mishap at a railroad bridge a little further down, and there's over an hour post on the save playlist there that you can watch. There was one previously that was made private or taken down, I don't know, but there is still one there on the playlist that you can watch that adventure. Anyway, they could not continue on March the 13th, and they lost the cabin on the top, I remember. But a week later, March 20th, they reorganized, got everything set, and started back down. And I was on my river, I was up there at the time, watched some of it, came home, so I was here at the river at my home when they came down past. And I yelled to them, "Are you happy?" And several of them yelled back, "We are. Yes, we are." And so they did make it down to Clearfield. And it sat down there at Lower Woodmere Park, I don't know, a week or two. And so it was a big event for our county bicentennial in 2004. So that's just a little history on things, and it all started with this little piece of wood here. I don't know how to preserve that writing on it any better. Nothing lasts forever. But I'll tell you about the 1938 Muncy raft crash. And I'm just going to read quite a little bit actually, of what I printed out here. The 1938 Muncy raft crash, also referred to as the last raft tragedy, was a rafting incident that occurred on March 20th, 1938 in Muncy Township, Pennsylvania. It killed 7 of the 45 people on board. The remaining 38 were rescued. And it says the trip was a historical reenactment of log rafting in northeastern United States, particularly eastern and central Pennsylvania, where the logging boom was the strongest. Multiple local men decided to hold a memorial rafting trip from Clearfield County to Harrisburg. Thus, the man who got this piece of wood, when they got to Clearfield, they actually started at McGee's Mill on March 14th. And they made it to Clearfield on the March 15th when he got that piece of wood. The 200-mile trip was expected to take a week and a half to complete. In the beginning, there were 6 experienced rafters on board. They tied off multiple times for food and rest and met the crowd, which began forming along the riverside. The 112-foot by 25-foot raft picked up dozens of people at Lock Haven and Williamsport. About 6 days into the trip, on March the 20th, the raft entered Muncy Township with 45 people on board. Being over 100 feet long, the raft was very hard to maneuver. It was approaching the Reading Railroad Bridge when people who were standing on the bridge began shouting at the rafters to try to avoid the pier. The raft struck one of the pillars, and all but 2 of the 45 people on board were thrown into the river. Hundreds of people were on the bridge watching the raft when it struck, and many jumped into the water to try to save the rafters. Many of the deaths were due to drowning, as most on board couldn't swim very well. The last of the 7 bodies was recovered a month after the tragic event. So there is, and I put this also on as the 3rd addition to the playlist on the Clearfield channel. There is a silent film about this situation, which is really interesting to watch. It doesn't show the tragedy, but it shows the preparation and the memorial at the end, as I recall. So I just wanted to make a memory of this for those who have never heard about any of this. And I remember, I think it was 2013 or 14, I made a trip down to Carthus. It's on this channel too, a video called Ring Rock at Miller's Landing. And what I wanted to find was the rings that the rafts tied up down at Carthus at Miller's Landing. And it took me a while, but I found them. So if you ever want to see that adventure that I was on, just type in and search Ring Rock, Miller's Landing, because I don't think you're going to do it. So that's just a little bit about what I know. Very little that I know, but I wanted to share it. Thank you, Mr. Peters, for this piece of wood. I've saved it, and I value it.